At 72 years old, Rand Timmerman laced up his boots, not just to hike the Appalachian Trail, but to walk with his brother in a journey of healing, redemption, and unshakable brotherhood. After battling addiction and finding sobriety, Rand discovered that the trail wasn't just about the miles. It was about being present, carrying each other's burdens, and rediscovering purpose one step at a time. This is a story of second chances, deep faith, and the kind of love that shows up mile after mile. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. Welcome to Journey with Jake. I'm your host, Jake Bushman. If you're new here, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. You can also watch full conversations over on my YouTube channel. Just search for Journey with Jake. And a special shout out to the Podmatch Podcast Network for helping me connect with incredible guests like today's. Today we continue that theme of transformation and trust in something greater. Rand Timmerman's story is a reminder that no matter our age or past, it's never too late to lean on a higher power and choose a better path. From addiction and heartache to healing and faith, Rand's journey is both humbling and inspiring. If this episode speaks to you, be sure to check out episode 138 with Dave Letterfly, a story filled with similar themes of surrender, spiritual awakening, and the beauty of embracing life's deeper purpose. Let's get to my conversation with Rand Timmerman. All right, this is fun for me because I've got Rand Timmerman joining me today. And Rand and I had a little issue before. We had a little technical difficulty the other day, but I always know the episode's going to be really good. Whenever I have trouble getting somebody on and we kind of have some issues, I know when I finally get them on, it's going to be an awesome episode. So I'm super excited. Rand, thank you for coming. Thanks for being on Journey with Jake.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Jake. And thanks for your patience.
I think you and I were both saying, I'm like, man, I wish I knew more about this stuff because I could probably figure it out.
Yeah,
I couldn't figure it out. You couldn't figure it out. But then you got it figured out. So here we are. We're here together. Yep. This is going to be great. We're going to talk a lot about this journey along the Appalachian Trail that you did with your brother in your 70s, I might add. I think you were 71, he was 70, something like that. So we're going to talk about that. You were 72. Okay, very good. All right, 72, even older, which that in and of itself is amazing that you're in your 70s because it's it could be a strenuous hike, especially if you're through hiking, kind of like what you did. We're going to touch a lot on that. Before we get into that, though, I kind of want to know just a little bit about your background, kind of where you grew up, where you're from, and kind of family life growing up, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. I grew up in Adams, New York, a little tiny, very rural, more cows than people type village up in upstate New York, almost into Canada, on the east side of Lake Ontario. My dad was a Mustang pilot in World War II, and he came home and married my mom and had me and my brother. And he got polio. He ended up in a hospital for a year, 8 months in an iron lung. And when he came out, he was paralyzed from the waist down. So what that meant was poverty. And yeah, we had a really hard scrabble life in a very kind of hard scrabble place. And I had great upbringing. We were surrounded by farms. I started working on farms when I was 12 years old. I could drive a tractor and back up a trailer full of hay and do all kinds of stuff. So in that way, it was really great, but we were poor and I hated that. But I did well in school and I was kind of a rock star, I was a miler. I was a good runner and set a school record that lasted for about 10 years, I guess. And went off to college with no money. I was a pin setter in a bowling alley, among other jobs. I worked as a janitor from midnight to 8 o'clock in a high school and I was just struggling. And I loved alcohol. I drank at 13 and I became Clint Eastwood, man. I was like, I'm the guy, I'm 6 foot, I'm 5'8", 110 pounds, but in my mind, I'm Clint Eastwood, right? That first go around, I'll never forget it. And so I knew alcohol could probably be a problem someday. And so I struggled in college and with money and stuff, and then got drunk one night in a bar far from the bowling alley where I worked. Next morning, the owner came in and turned on the radio. I slept all night. I passed out on the pool table. And the owner came in and turned on the radio, and they were talking about 1st Marine Division going into Vietnam. And I sat up on that pool table and looked at that bartender. And, he was the owner of the bar, and he looked at me, and I walked out that door, and I never looked back. So a month later, I'm at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York, pledging to serve my country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And 9 months later, I'm standing in a rice paddy going, I think I made a big mistake.
That's a lot to take in. That's a lot of stuff that you had happen to you. Struggling at college, and not struggling, it's just, financially, like, how do I get by? In the meantime, you're drinking like crazy. So you sign up kind of on a whim, you enlist. You weren't even drafted then, you enlisted.
Yeah, I enlisted. It was the French Foreign Legion for me. I didn't drink a lot because I didn't have any money. But when I drank, I got drunk.
Gotcha.
The founder of the recovery program that I in 1940 wrote about if you're a real alcoholic, you probably had a hard time making decisions unless you were drunk. Or the other way he put it was most alcoholics come up with their best ideas when they're drunk. So that's what he would tell his wife. So I had that going. Yeah, my brother was over there. He enlisted in the Army. He was down by Chula. I was up in I Corps in the northernmost province. We were both machine gunners on helicopters not together or anything like that. I mean, he was totally different worlds from what I was in, but it was pretty bad. The last couple of months, they made me a Mustang lieutenant. The lifespan of a infantry lieutenant in Vietnam was not good. So when I left, they said, well, you can go back to being a corporal or you can go to OCS, Officer Candidate School. So I went to Officer Candidate School so that they couldn't take away my commission and make me a grunt anymore. And then I went into the air wing, and I had a gunnery sergeant who was a friend of mine. He was my drill instructor in boot camp. He was a gunnery sergeant when I was in Vietnam. They made him a Mustang lieutenant. When I got to Cherry Point, my new duty station after all my officer training, he's the officer of the day. He's a captain. And he said, where do you want to go? And I said, I don't know. What do you got? He said, well, he's rattling off these schools. And he said, Rhode Island. I said, Rhode Island? I've never been to Rhode Island. What's that? And he says, JAG school. So I went off to JAG school, Judge Advocate General, to be a legal officer in the United States Marine Corps, right? I get over there. The class is 100 people, men, actually, all men. Me, a second lieutenant, right? And 99 captain alive lawyers, graduated from law school. They're all, legit, right? I may have been the last non-college educated, non-lawyer JAG officer in the Marine Corps. I was told that at a 50th anniversary thing that I went to. But anyway, so 20 of us rented a mansion. It was the off season. They all want to party. And for whatever reason, Jake, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm going to just work at this. I ended up being the honor man. I got the highest score. Pissed them all off. So I get back to the Mass 1 at the Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Base, and they make me, I'm the legal officer. They made me defensive guys. Well, I defended a guy that was sleeping on watch, which is almost impossible. That's prison time, right? In the Marine Corps, it's serious business. So I came up with some witness, and anyway, he got acquitted by colonels, majors, and lieutenant colonels, right? The officers are the jury in military trials.
Wow.
So I had another one, and so then they decided to make me prosecutor. So I wouldn't get any more people off, basically, I guess. And then my friend would send me down to Puerto Rico every few months to do Article 32, type of trial down there. We had a base down there. It's called Roosevelt Roads. And finally, I came back from one of those. And every time I went, I was on the list to go back to Vietnam as a forward observer, right? Not the greatest. And then I come back and I said, Dale, I don't understand why I'm not going to Vietnam. He says, you stupid son of a gun. Why do you think I keep sending you down to Puerto Rico? You go back to Vietnam, you're going to get killed. There's no questions about it. You've had too many, close calls. So I had a guardian angel in the Marine Corps, believe it or not. But anyway, It set me on a life course to be So I got married. I had one girl, and then I came back to Syracuse, went to college, got my BA, got my law degree, and I spent 40 years as an attorney. That's why my book, it says
Holy
Rand
cow.
Timmerman, Esquire.
Esquire. Yeah, you got the Esquire there.
Yeah.
And I have a few questions about that journey. Okay, so the military, Mustang Lieutenant. In other words, it's almost like a battlefield commission. Is that kind of what that is?
That's what they call it, Marine Corps. Yeah, in World War II, they called them combat lieutenants. In other words, you became a lieutenant out of necessity.
Out of necessity. So they needed you to lead a group and whatever, and they needed you. So but like you said, the lifespan wasn't very long for those in Vietnam.
Yeah, I didn't ever put the bars on my collars in combat. I didn't put them on.
You saw a lot of combat then in Vietnam.
Correct. I did. Yeah.
And you had combat yourself. How do you think that?
Correct.
I mean, because back in those days, and again, I wasn't around the 60s. I'm born in the 70s. But PTSD, that sort of thing, I don't know if it was that well known, but I'm guessing did that affect you?
Yes, yes, it did a tremendous, and my brother both. When we came back, there was no the PTSD hadn't been invented yet. They called it battle fatigue and other, they knew soldiers were different, had been in combat. And for myself, I was so darn busy. And especially I went to college, I was married, I had a kid, I'm working 3 jobs because we still don't have enough money to hardly live on. And I'm really busy. And I kept thinking, this is amazing. I don't seem to have been affected by the war at all. A lot of my buddies turned into alcoholics. Some of them died, suicide. I mean, I had some pretty bad stories. And one night I had a nightmare, my first nightmare about the war, and I was in bed. I was in the battle in Vietnam. I could picture everything. I was covered with blood. I could smell everything. I could smell the powder. I could smell I had been cut open with a bayonet. And I was sitting there trying to put my guts back into me. And I'm thinking, Rand, this time you're done. See, I did a mission in Vietnam where we ran out of ammo. And the only way I survived was with a bayonet. So now,
Wow.
5 years later, right? 5 years later, I have this nightmare. And it was so real, Jake. It was just, and then all of a sudden, the light comes on. I'm covered with white light. I open my eyes, and my wife is laying on the floor over by the bathroom, and she had flicked the switch. It's the middle of the night, right? She flicked the switch up, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and we both know our lives just changed tremendously. I'm not covered with blood. I'm covered with sweat. I'm screaming. I'm not cut open with a bayonet, but I have voided myself. I am smelling manure and urine because I've totally destroyed our bed. And I knew at that moment. And there was no, the first time I went to the VA I was 65 years old. I went to the VA because they put me on suicide watch. See, there was no
Wow.
treatment for us. And I can name you, I won't, of course, but I can name you guys that came back, could not handle it, and ended up committing suicide either directly or indirectly with alcohol. And after I had that dream, I started using alcohol to medicate at night. I put the kids to bed, my wife would go to bed, and I would drink my brains out for half an hour. And then I would go to bed, and I always got up really early, 4 or 5. I was self-employed. I had people working for me. I would just get up. So the nightmares, if I had them, I didn't remember them, right? Or sometimes later on, it would get, I'd be in situations where I didn't drink or whatever, and I could I could feel the nightmare coming on, and I could divert it in my head, or I would wake myself up, and I would just get up and go to work or do something. But that's how I lived my life. To this day, I still only sleep about 5 hours a night. Yeah, I have what they call hypervigilance.
Yeah,
walking around the house, everything's locked up. I still do that. I was at the VA a few months ago, and they wanted to help me with that. And I said, I've been doing this for 60 years. I'm 80 years old now. I'm not going to change. What? I managed to do this 60 years, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working for me. And I got sober 11 years ago. I got into a recovery program my alcoholism didn't really take off until I got into my early 60s. And then all of a sudden, I just couldn't control it anymore. A lot of my friends thought I was a functional alcoholic. It never really affected me at work. I didn't miss work. I didn't drink it on the job or anything like that. I was a litigator, so I was in court all the time. But
Wow.
anyway,
Wow. This is incredible, and this is a huge part of who you are. So you were, yeah, some people say a functioning alcoholic, so to speak, but you were still drinking. And then, so what happened in your 60s? Why all of a sudden then did it just get out of control, do you think?
kids are all gone. I'm married again. I had relationship problems from the war and abusive alcohol and bad choices here and there. Great relationship with my kids, thank God. They didn't really understand. I had to put myself into a rehab 15 years ago, and because I knew it was getting out of hand. And I retired because I had a really good reputation. I didn't want to destroy that. I had never been grieved. I was a litigator. That's almost unheard of. I took a lot of pride in my work, and I was a hard worker and all that. I was a good father, an okay husband, you know. But luckily for me, and the problem was I didn't have any relationship with a higher power. Now, Ronnie came back from the war, married our mother's best friend, who was 14 years older than him. She was divorced with 7 kids.
Hey, Ronnie's your brother, right? That's who Ronnie is.
Yes, he's the one I hiked the trail with. So I'm trying to
Okay,
get to
very good.
that.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so Ronnie, all right. So, okay, say that again. He
Yeah,
married your mom's best friend?
Edie, yes. So Ronnie comes back from Vietnam. He came back after me. He did 2 tours, actually. And next thing I know, he's running around with our mother's best friend, divorced with 7 kids, and they're going line dancing and riding around a convertible. And oh my God, she's a good looking lady, and he's got a big grin on his face. And he married her, and they got involved in the Mormon church, moved out to Utah. He became a bishop in the Mormon church. He became a commercial pilot and flew planes for a living. Edie had a stroke. By the time Edie had her stroke in 2011, they had 27 grandkids. And when she died in 2017, November 17, 2017, they had 27 great grandkids. I
Wow.
mean, these Mormons like to marry young and they like to frolic a lot, right?
Hey,
I mean, just big
I'm from
families.
I'm from Utah, so I kind of know what that's all about. I fit right into that mold, I mean, so that's wow. Okay, first of all, this story just in and of itself is great. Married your mom's best friend. She's 14 years older than him. She was divorced with 7 kids. And wow, ends up marrying her, moving to Utah, joins the Mormon faith, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And wow, so he had that. He had the higher power. You were talking about a higher power. It sounds
Right.
like he was in line with that, but you weren't. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, no, you've got that 100% correct. Yeah, I would, I loved alcohol. I already expressed that. It did wonderful things for me. I had a lot of fun for a long time. I didn't have any consequences of any sort. But if you're a true alcoholic, your body metabolizes. A lot of people don't realize this, but the American Medical Association in 1956 declared alcoholism a disease. Well, there's a reason for that, and that is that alcoholics metabolize alcohol differently, and our bodies don't process alcohol the same way it does for normal drinkers. So normal drinkers process alcohol, they get what's called acetone, is the chemical process that ends up creating acetone. They don't like that feeling, that jittery, whatever, and they stop, right? And they don't think about drinking. Alcoholics like me, we get that acetone and it builds, that's that feeling that you are thirsty. Normal people don't sit down and drink 24 beers, right? An alcoholic sits down and drinks 23 beers and he's still thirsty. He wants another one. That's why. That's me. Only with me at the end, it ended up being vodka. And of course, I had this other stuff going on and I was just obliterated. I knew I was in big trouble. I retired and I didn't want to have any repercussions. And I went into full-time recovery mode. And I struggled because I didn't have the God thing. And Ronnie had that. It's funny. My younger brother and I, he's a drinker too, right to this day. Not crazy like I was at the end, but um, we get together with Ronnie and Edie and half of their kids and grandkids and all that stuff every year in the summertime, usually one day. And Marty and I would get a good buzz going on. We'd be mocking the bishop because he's so boring. Look at us. We're having way more fun than he, that kind of. Yeah. I'm not proud of that. but that's the way it was, you know. So Ronnie and I didn't have, there was no antagonism or anything like that. We just weren't close. So Edie had the stroke, and then unfortunately, she didn't get better. She got worse. She had a bunch of mini strokes. The last 6 years of her life, Ronnie had to take care of her 24/7. He wouldn't let anybody else take care of her. And he thought through that process. You know, being a bishop, he'd done a lot of weddings and funerals and all kinds of stuff, and he thought he was ready, but it hit him like a thunderbolt. So I went out. The first time I'd ever been out to his house in St. George, and we ended up hiking beautiful hiking places there. Now, Ronnie had hiked all his life. I had hiked all my life. I ran 26 marathons, so we were in pretty good shape. But we're not big guys either. We're not macho men. You know, we're both about 5'8", 175 pounds, you know, just kind of regular guys, except we both got that grit, that, you know, that sort of mindset. If we're going to do something, if my brother says he's going to do something, he's going to do it, right? Once he makes it, and he had made up his mind, he was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. And when he sprung that on me, I'm like, oh my God, because I had hiked in the Smoky Mountains. I did fake charges with bears, you know. I like combat veterans are kind of crazy in a way. I rode motorcycles, I flew airplanes, you know, I would go on solo hikes in the worst places by myself. So I had that experience, and I just knew it was really, really hard. So I asked him, I said, when are you going to go? This is January of 2018. He goes, March 22nd. Well, guess what? March 22nd, we're at Springer Mountain and it's snowing. We're hiking the Appalachian Trail. And when I wrote the book the first time, I took 5,000 pictures. Ronnie didn't take
Wow.
hardly any pictures. All Ronnie did was march. Daybreak, I'm going to go from here to there. That's it. Bang. And away he went, right? I was more about, I'm never walking this way again. Nobody's shooting at me. That's good. I'm just going to kind of try to have a good time here. I took a ton of pictures. The Appalachian Trail is beautiful. You know, you go around a corner, and I go around a corner and thinking, well, I probably won't see anything great today. And I'm, oh my God, look at that. You know, it was amazing, but it was also painful. Limped. You know, I had an artificial left knee. My right knee is a total disaster, bone on bone. It's half-inch shorter from all the trauma I put it through, from Vietnam all the way through, all that running without any medial meniscus. You know, we're crazy, Jake. I'm telling you.
Wow. In this point for you, you were sober at this point. For getting sober, you found a higher power than you found God to get sober. Is that kind of what helped you?
Yes, I struggled for 3.5 years. I ended up in the hospital twice on suicide watch. I ended up in the VA. I got a ride to the VA in handcuffs in a state trooper car because I had made a phone call saying I think I need help. So I walked into the VA first time at 65 years old in handcuffs into a psych ward. 3 doors to get in. It's real easy to get in those 3 doors. It's a son of a gun to get back out. You know, and 2 or 3 days later, they've got me on some stuff, and I'm not drunk anymore. I'm getting, you know, my brain's coming back and everything. And I realize, oh my God, these people, I'm just a drunk. These people are crazy. I mean, they are really, really crazy. There was a guy there, was a captain in the army. He was a company commander in Vietnam. He saw a lot. He lost a lot of men. He was not right. He didn't make it. He and I walked the hallways the whole 5 days. I bet you we walked 20 miles a day, just walking the hallways, him and me. We're locked in. It was like a big, like this, all around, just talking to each other. But he was nuts. There was no, yeah, I felt really bad about that.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So it sounds like to me, you found God. You were able to get sober. Meanwhile, your brother, who's always kind of had God, it was almost as if it was kind of his turn. He needed that help. He needed you now because he's always kind of been the one that's had God. But now that his wife had passed away, that sounded like that was a challenge for him. And I think, is that kind of the reason he's like, I'm going to go hike this trail, just because that was kind of his way of mourning, so to speak?
Yes. Yeah. He felt like he had to get back into nature and find a way to put balance back in his life somehow. I mean, he's very close to all the kids and grandkids, but I don't know. He needed that, you know. And it was lucky I was there too, because there were some moments that, you know, he really struggled. He woke up screaming one night. He was in a really bad place and he wanted to quit. And I knew my brother. You can't make good decisions in the dark, in the middle of night terrors. You just can't. And I told him, I said, Ronnie, just settle down. We're going to go hike today like we do every day. The sun's coming up. It's going to be a nice day. If you decide when we meet at noontime that you don't want to do this anymore, then I'm okay with it. Well, son of a gun, because I've been thinking all along, there's no way we're ever going to do this thing, right? So I'm kind of hoping, Jake, I'm just being honest with you. I was like, if he says we're not doing this anymore, I'm fine with it, right? Son of a gun, I meet him. We're having our lunch there. He doesn't say a word. So I knew, okay, we're just going to keep going. See, the Appalachian Trail is a very interesting thing. I like to cover this real quick. The Appalachian Trail goes from Springer Mountain, Georgia, to Catadin Mountain in Maine. It's 2,190 miles. It goes over 600 mountains. 300
Wow.
of them 300 of them are named. The elevation changes is 465,000 feet up and down. Up, you're almost Jake. There were days going up a mountain is hard, right? But you kind of get into that chug, chug, chug thing. And I never stopped on the side of a mountain going up. Never, not once. Then you got to go down. Actually, going down is harder. Most people don't realize it, but the weight is pushing you. You got your poles that puts a lot of pressure on your arms and your knees. And then I would be praying, God, just not literally, but just give me 100 yards flat. Just 100 yards flat. I'll be so happy. Get down the bottom of the mountain. You look, there's the other mountain. You go flat about 10 feet, and then you start up again. In Georgia, especially, you could go up and down 8 miles. There are 8 mountains in one day. Some parts of Georgia. Yeah, and then other places. Once you get into the whites, like in New Hampshire, you can spend all morning going up a mountain and all afternoon getting down it as best you can.
And you started in March. How long did you go?
Yep.
Did you finish that year? Did you come back the next year? How did it all pan out for you?
Well, that's a good question, Jake. We had 2 vehicles. When I asked my brother, I said, how are you going to do this? He said, I'm going to take a Greyhound bus down to Springer Mountain and start walking. And my brain's going, oh, that's not going to work. That wouldn't work if you were 40, let alone, right? So I said, well, so he had done a lot of studying and he had maps and stuff. We started looking at them. There's a road of some kind going across the Appalachian Trail from one side to the other every 10 to 15 miles. Except for in the Smokies, there's a couple 35 miles on each side of Klingman's Dome. And then there's an area called the Pre. So there's some places where you got to carry a full pack. And then so we took 2 vehicles. So the way we did it was like when we left Springer Mountain, Ron's oldest son, Rick, went with us the first couple of weeks. So they drove up around to the next road, parked. They walked south and I walked north. And then they got to my vehicle. And then they came back around. And then usually what we did is we parked right on the trail, wherever we were. I like to brag, I slept in a tent every night, but most of the time my truck was right next to it, along with the bears that would walk by it in the middle of the night. That happened too. The first time I woke up and there was a bear like 4 feet from my tent because I could see it. I smelled it before I saw it.
Wow.
So that's how we did it. I got a really bad infection. I have hammer toes and I have fungus on my toes, which is still there from Vietnam. It's never gone away. And I got an infection. And I ended up in the hospital after when we got to Fontana Dam. My daughter lives in Knoxville. I ended up in the hospital anyway. They gave me quadruple antibiotics. And then after a week, I went back and we started in again. So we kind of went spurts. We had two periods. We went 30 plus days in a row, averaged 11 miles. I fell every day. I broke 8 poles. In 2018, we went from March 22nd. I was out that week. And I think we took another week at one point. And then we were in New Jersey. We had done almost 15,000 miles one day. It was 100 degrees. 100% humidity. You're walking 11 miles a day in the mountains, Jake. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's just try to do it on the flat. You're lucky in the mountains if you can do 1.5 miles in an hour, nonstop. We never stopped. The younger guys would fly by us, and then an hour or two later, that we'd catch up to them, go by them. Then maybe a couple hours later, they'd fly by again. Most of the hikers stopped a lot. We never stopped. Now, Ronnie's always going one way and I'm going the other, so we're not hiking together, which is a good thing because I limped. I can't keep up with him anyway. But so anyway, this one day we came out. We're in New Jersey, hot. Oh my God! And my brother's standing there with his hands on his hips, and he goes, "You want to go home?" I said, "Sure." So that was it for 28. We had both lost. We were both down to 155. You can't possibly eat enough food to keep the weight on.
Wow.
Oh yeah, we look like, Auschwitz survivors,
Wow.
emaciated. Oh yeah, we were. If you look at the pictures of it. So then the next year he said, "Do you want to try to finish it?" And I said, "Sure, let's go." So we went back. We did pretty good. I was climbing Mount Wilcox in Massachusetts, which is kind of a normal, regular size, couple thousand foot mountain. The first part of it was kind of normal, 10, 15% grade, earthen path. And then I got up north. It always gets steeper at the top and it always turns into rocks, right? And there's a rock slide. Literally, I could show you the picture, Jake. You'd say, "There's no way that's the trail." And then you look up and you see the white blaze mark. And you go, "That's the trail." You got to climb up all those. Sometimes you're, hands and knees and everything else. I get up, I'm 10 feet from the top, and my pole slipped and I stabbed with the other one. If I had just fallen on my face, it would have been fine. It probably would have, little blood and stuff, but I would have been fine. No, I have to try to regain my balance. I flip around 180 degrees and I swan dive off that rock slide. And I closed my eyes because I knew my brain's going, "This is going to hurt a lot." And then when I hit, it was like, "Oh my God, this is so much worse." It was the worst pain I ever felt my whole life. But then all of a sudden I stopped. And what I finally figured out after a couple of minutes was my foot got wedged between two rocks. So that stopped me. Otherwise, I would have been killed for sure. So now I laid there for a while. I'm all blood, my elbows, my arms, my legs, my knees. Finally, I thought, I can't climb back down. So I crawled up to the top. I had gone 3 miles. It's 9 miles to get to the next road. So I started walking. I don't know if you've ever been hurt bad, but I have been hurt bad a lot. But anyway, at first the pain is just incredible, right? But if you keep going after a while, it just kind of gives you this warm, really achy thing. And I met my brother and he goes, "What the hell happened to you?" And I told him, and he said, "You all right?" Well, they're not going to heli lift me out of there or anything like that.
Right.
So I walked all the way out and he met me there and then went to bed. I was really hurt bad. And next morning I got out of the tent, but I couldn't get in. So we went home. Turned out I had damaged my hip and we're kind of tough guys and didn't really do anything about it, right? And within a few days, I'm walking again. And about 3 weeks later, he goes, "You want to try to finish it?" I said, "Sure." So I did another 300 miles. I ended up doing 1,863 miles, I think it was. And then we got to Mount Washington, and that was the weather was bad. You know what Mount Washington is, right? New Hampshire.
No, it's New Hampshire. Okay.
Yeah, it's the highest mountain in the Northeast. It gets snow it's got the highest recorded wind speed of any mountain in North America. Was 243 miles an hour, something like that. Well, yeah, look it up. It is a tough mountain. So they won't let people in there quite a bit of the time. So we jumped up to Moosilauke. That was a big mountain, and then we did Wolf Mountain, and then the next day we took a break. We were going to do Mount Washington. The weather had gotten better, and we started out, and I was done. I started crying. I didn't want to disappoint him, but I said, "I can't do it, bro. I can't do it." I'm down to 150 pounds now. And I'm in a lot of pain. The problem was the pain was just killing me. So anyway, I didn't finish it. He finished it with his son, Rick, and they made it to Katahdin. They went through the 100-mile wilderness and all that. They couldn't climb Katahdin because they had it closed because of COVID. Can you imagine? Yeah. Well, while they were doing that, I was in the hospital getting a new hip.
Wow.
So, and I still walk 8 miles a day. Every day I walk 3 miles before daylight. Usually I do a couple more at noon and a couple more in the afternoon. So,
Good for you.
Good. Yeah.
This story, this journey of yours was amazing to hear. So I appreciate you sharing it. And at the end there, when you had to stop and you got emotional about it. Tell me just overall when you think back, because I think about a few things. I think about what it did for you personally, but I also think about what it did for your brother. I know that meant a lot having you there with him. Tell me about your bond with your brother to this day, and just kind of your overall thoughts and feelings. Because like I said, you got a little emotional about it there at the end, and I can see why.
Yeah, we kind of pride ourselves if we decide to do something to do it, but I couldn't. The
Yeah,
pain
it's
was
too much.
incredible, and I can handle 7, 8. I can't handle 10. I wasn't able to sleep anymore at night. The pain was so bad. I just couldn't do it. And the funny part, and I wrote about this in the book, Jake, my brother had more pain things going on with him, and I had stuff going on when we never talked about it. We never said to each other, "How are you feeling? Are you okay, bro?" So, at one point he got a wicked bad cramp, and it happened to be when our phones were working. He called me. I was actually ahead of him. This was one time we were going the same direction, and he said, "I can't walk anymore." So I dropped my pack and went racing back with some vinegar, because vinegar will take care of cramps. I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not know
And
that. Wow.
yeah, it works really good. And because otherwise he wasn't going to make it. So yeah, we were looking out for each other. I did not want to let him down. That's what hurt the worst. But I just couldn't. I had to do something about my hip. I was just bad. I knew it was bad. I have a history of overdoing things. You know, I did 50K ski races every winter when I couldn't run. I figured for a long time, I run every day somewhere between 3 and 30 miles, or I ski every day in the wintertime somewhere between 10 and 50 miles, right? And then I drink my brains out. Well, I can't possibly be an alcoholic if I can do that. Plus, so I kind of had that mindset,
Yeah,
foolishness. But see, when you can't do all that stuff anymore, that's when the alcohol starts to take over for guys like me.
for
And I've
sure.
talked to a lot of guys in the program that, yeah. And I talked about it in the book. This is my part of the spiritual journey, was particularly about how I got sober. And then I wrote about that in the book because I work with a lot of guys who struggle, not only with alcohol, but other things, self-esteem and depression and all kinds of things. I don't promote it or anything like that, but I have found that some people, if they get a chance to, have an opportunity to read it, word of mouth or whatever, amazing things can happen, because they realize, look, if this guy can get sober at 68, scumbag like him, and then he can go and do this stuff and write books and talk to people all the time and be a speaker at meetings and have a vibrant, joyful life. See, that's where the inspiration comes in. That's what fulfills me. I tell guys every day, I work with guys every single day. And a lot of them are brand new and they're struggling and having all kinds of problems. And I'll look at them and say, you're helping me more than I'm helping you. And they go, "What are you talking about? You've been sober for 11 plus years."
It's so true what you're
So,
saying. And
yeah.
hearing your story, it's helping me. I mean, I'm being inspired and motivated by it. And you mentioned the book. Tell me the name of the book, what it's called, if you don't mind, so everyone knows.
Yeah, no, it's a spiritual passage. I've got it right here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Spiritual
It's on
Passage.
Amazon. I have a website, randtimmerman.com. That's just my name. And then I have an email account, rand.timmerman@gmail.com. I'm not doing the social thing, but I'm probably going to have to at some point,
Yeah, I hear you. Perfect. So that's the book. And you said you took a ton of pictures, so I'm guessing that's full of pictures, I'm hoping.
There's 500 pictures, and it's in a journal format. My brother and I both wrote journals. So when I decided to do the book, and the published version is the second one. I did it the first time, I totally on my own, had it printed up, started giving it away to people that were struggling and stuff like that. And, like I said, I talked about my recovery, but I also have in here, Ronnie was meticulous about what time we got up, where we were, where we went, how far it was to the inch, and all that kind of stuff. I wrote about what I saw, the people, all the trail names and stuff like that, more human interest stuff. So between the two of us, it made sense to kind of do it in a journal format. If somebody wanted to hike the trail, they could copy us. And not only that,
Hmm.
but somebody said, "Well, I want to go hike this section." Well, they can look in the book, see what we did. There's some picture. Oh, is that what that looks like? I want to go see that. That's cool. you know?
Yeah. I like that. But then you also you also tell about your journey though too, and your spiritual journey and that whole bit too,
Right.
which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, every third chapter has a picture that relates to whatever the topic is I'm talking about that day, whether it's what it was like in early recovery. We have 12 steps that we do. So I have talk about how I did those with a man who taught me how to have, you know, to pray and how to connect with a higher power and do all the things that I needed to do. Not only to take the obsession away, it took me about 6 months for the obsession to go away. But then after that, we work on what we call character defects. So try to become the person that God always wanted us to be. And then after the first, and so I wrote all that stuff, and there's a lot of funny stuff. Some of it was pretty funny in a way. And then after I had my first year of sobriety, one day a guy walks up to me and he goes, "Rand, would you be my sponsor?" And my brain's going, no, just a year. I'm like, "You're not ready, Rand." So I did what Billy always did. I said, Billy was my sponsor. I said, "Come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it." See, Billy did it because people were asking him to be his sponsor all the time. He had 30 years sobriety. And that was his kind of way of filtering out the ones that weren't serious, right? But I'm doing it because I need to go talk to Billy. And so he can tell me I'm not ready, right? So I go tell Billy, and he goes, "Oh, well, that's good. Go for it." I said, "Billy, you're supposed to tell me I'm not ready." And he goes, "What do you mean you're not ready? You got a lot of bad experience. And now you got a lot of good experience, right?" So, and I did. And I've been working with men ever since. I've spent about 3.5, 4 hours a day on going to the program. It's an anonymous program, so I can't really blab about the title of
Sure.
it because that's a tradition we have. We're all anonymous. We're just all trying to get sober and stay sober. That's what it's all about. And I can't be, well, anyway. So, and I'm always working with guys, and they make me better. I tell them that regularly. "You're helping me." They look at you like, "What are you talking about?" No, it's true. One drunk help working on them, one step at a time. That's where that came from. One step at a time. We can do almost anything, right? We can certainly get sober one step at a time if we do certain things. It's simple.
How would you say your relationship with God is now today?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I struggled for the first 6 months. I felt like this higher power. See, here's what I didn't realize. If I'm powerless over alcohol, which I was totally, I put that first mouthful in me, every cell in my body starts screaming for more. I can't stop. And 3 or 4 days later, I'm in the hospital on suicide watch. I have a real serious problem. There's something about me that alcohol renders me powerless. So I have to have another power. And it's got to be greater than me, right? So it's a higher power. Well, dummy, let's do that. So I made a relationship with this higher power. I'm praying the way I was taught to pray. I still do it to this day, Jake. I've done it every morning, and I've never taken a drink since. But there were a lot of times it was pretty close calls, especially in the beginning, because my higher power, I didn't make it big enough from the beginning. I was just thinking like a little bit, whatever. But today it's huge. It's huge. When it turned for me, I was standing on a mountain in New Jersey. I can't remember the name of it. Early in the morning, because we always left right at daybreak. Standing up there on the top, there's a couple of raptors flying around. It's beautiful morning. It's cool. These awesome birds. I'm feeling spiritual power all around me. And I cannot see one thing that's human related. There's no contrails. It's all God's creation. These beautiful, beautiful mountains. I know the valleys below me are filled with millions of people. I don't hear a sound except the birds. And then I look way out about 50 miles away and I can just barely see the skyscrapers of New York City. I go, holy shit, God made all of that. And I never saw it. I never saw it before. And since then, it's become even, for me, it's 15 billion years of creation and experience and knowledge and wisdom that I will never, ever, ever, ever have. But I can have his spirit and do what I need to do to be the man he always wanted me to be.
I love it. This is amazing for me. So I appreciate you sharing this. So tell me about some of your experience in working with other men. If someone comes to you and they're struggling with alcohol, I mean, what if you had just one piece of advice that you could give, and you can do it here on the podcast? maybe what piece of advice would that be to give to them?
Just don't drink today no matter what. Just don't drink today no matter what. Go to a meeting, make a phone call, talk to somebody in the program, do what you're supposed to do, pray.
Just don't do it today. Don't drink today.
I'll do it today. Because what happens, it takes a long time for that horrendous pull that, it gets into our bodies, and I don't know, it's hard to explain. For me, it felt like every cell in my body was addicted to alcohol. And when they decided it was I would go 2 or 3 months without drinking, going to meetings, doing everything I was supposed to, except I wasn't praying. I'm not going to do the God thing because Rand knows better. I'm going to figure it out. I never figured it out. I still haven't figured it out, right? All I know is that it went away. God, something greater than myself, took it away and then said, okay, kid, now I want you to go and help the next guy. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Billy always said, somebody asks you for help in our program, Ram, you never say no as long as it's alcohol related. And that's what I do. And I get tremendous joy out of it. And there's a lot of failures too. I've had some really sad things, but God's got a plan for all of us.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge his existence and work on it.
Yeah, for sure. Before we wrap up here, so a couple questions for you to kind of end up. First of all, Ronnie, how's Ronnie doing today?
He's doing good. He's good. Yep. He was just back here east for a while. He runs back and forth. He's got half of his family, which is huge. He spends daily writing graduation cards, birthday cards. He gives everybody $5 because he can't afford any more than that. But he has an awesome life, and he hikes every day too. Every fall, we've been doing a hike on the trail just to commemorate Edie's, He had a really powerful experience, spiritual experience on the trail on Father's Day in 2018. There's a picture in the book showing this unbelievable ray of light that came down, the only light that day on a very miserable, dark bank day. One ray of hope, one ray of light, and it turned my brother's life around. It took away the pain. He took away the pain. You look at that picture, you don't know what's in it. If it's Jesus Christ for you, that's fine. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but it was. So he had that moment too, right?
It's beautiful.
And it gave
fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful. My final question, this is a question I always ask on every show I do because it's an adventure podcast. For you, Rand, what does adventure mean to you?
Put myself out there. I still do crazy stuff. I have a camp up in the woods, and yesterday I got my rhino stuck in a swamp. So I used my 4-wheel truck to pull the rhino out, and then I got the truck stuck. And I had to use the rhino to get the truck out. And my wife and my brother are looking at me like, there's something wrong with you. You're not. Oh my God, Jake. I don't know. I just love adventure. I've just always been that way. I volunteered to be a machine gunner on a helicopter, right? And then I came back and I got a motorcycle because I needed that adrenaline rush, that sense. Yeah, it's still in me. I hope that I can keep writing my books and doing what I'm doing and helping people. And someday God will take me and say, your time's done. You did good, kid.
I love it. Rand, this has been just fantastic. You're an inspiration to me, so thank you for that. And I know you're an inspiration to others, and that means a lot. So thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Hey, big thank you to Rand Timmerman for sharing his powerful journey with all of us, from overcoming addiction to walking in faith and purpose. Rand's story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. If you'd like to learn more about Rand or pick up a copy of his inspiring book, A Spiritual Passage, be sure to visit his website, randtimmerman.com. I'm truly grateful to have guests like Rand on the show, people who open their hearts and remind us of what's possible when we surrender to something greater and keep moving forward. These stories inspire me, and I hope they inspire you too. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to share it with someone who might need a spark of hope or encouragement. And don't forget, your own adventure is always within reach. Start where you are and see where it takes you. Be sure to join me again next week as I sit down with Ronnie to hear about his journey through the Catskills and how it led him to write his debut fiction novel. It's another episode full of challenge, creativity, and transformation you won't want to miss. Until next time, keep chasing meaning, and just remember, it's not always about the destination as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.